Hello everyone, welcome back to the next video. In this video I will show you how to autofill OTPs from SMS via an Android plugin in Godot Game Engine. So we will be creating an Android plugin to autofill OTPs inside a text input for Godot Game Engine. So firstly I have created a cheat sheet from this particular documentation. So here is my cheat sheet. So if you want, you can go through this documentation. Whatever code I have copied or will be copying is from this particular documentation. So yeah, also for autofilling this OTP, I am using this particular SMS user consent API. I am not using, there is another API called SMS retriever. If you want a video for that, do let me know in the comments. But in SMS user consent API, what will happen is that once the user receives an OTP, the user will have to click on this the user will have to click on this allow to read this particular message, and once the user clicks on allow, then only we will get the OTP. So we don't have to request for all the messages in the user's device. So that's the advantage. So yeah, also this SMS user consent API is little flexible. So suppose if you are using suppose you are calling some financial institution and you don't have a control of what OTP it is, when it will be sent, you don't have access to the backend, then this SMS user consent API would be very helpful. So also one more thing, for sending SMS, in my case I'm using Twilio. Now this is not a paid sponsorship as such. The reason I'm using Twilio is because I can use it freely up to a certain extent, like I think $15 or something, without registering my debit card or credit card. That's the only reason I'm using Twilio. Now I will show you the output first. So firstly I'll just quickly open my Android device, running device. Here you can see I have one button. Okay, so typically what flow will happen is that the user will enter some mobile number and he will click on get OTP button, right? So in my given that I'm using Twilio, I don't have a backend as such. That's why I have hard coded my mobile number inside Twilio. That's why I don't have any mobile number edit text or text input for that. I directly have a button. Now suppose this is the get OTP button. Now once the get OTP button is clicked, we have to enable the user consent API. So that's what I am doing. Once you enable the user consent API, it will start listening for messages. And once we receive an SMS, it will automatically autofill that particular message. In my case, I haven't taken any text input or edit text, whatever you call it in Godot, but I have taken one label. The label is currently empty, that's why we are not able to see it. But as soon as we receive an SMS and the user allows the permission for it, I extract the OTP from the message and I display it inside our label. So I'll firstly quickly show you guys the output. Then I will explain it more. Okay, so typically the user flow would be like the user will click on the get OTP button, right? So suppose I am clicking on this button, it will start the user consent API, and in real world scenario, you will also have to call your backend API. The backend API in your case will trigger the SMS delivery part, right? Once you call your backend API will call some service like a Twilio or AWS service to send message to the OTP message to the user's device. Then they will actually get the message, right? So I'm not doing that. On click of the button, I'm just starting the user consent API. Then I will manually go to Twilio and send a message to my particular phone number, and then we will see the next part. Okay, so I'll just click on this particular button. I'm just displaying a toast message that the user consent API has started. This part I have blurred, but I will quickly send a SMS message of OTP to my mobile number using Twilio. So I have sent it, and I'll go back to my output. So here is my output, and here you can see that I have received this particular message, and my app is telling me to allow to read this particular message. So as a user, I'll just click on allow, and as soon as I allow it, here you can see I'm able to see the OTP inside my label. So yeah, that's it. Now few more things which I want to clear it out. Suppose you start the user consent, and in between that, before your message of OTP is delivered, some other message got delivered to the user. in that particular case you won't be able to read your OTP, because this user consent API only allows you to read it once. Obviously, if the user consent API also have a timeout, so in case if there is a timeout error, you can request for another user consent API to start. But yeah, be mindful that in case if you receive any other message from some app or your bank or whatever it is, then it will fail, because user can't user won't be able to see the allow pop-up menu again and again. It is only visible for the first message which the device receives once you start the user consent API. So be mindful of that. But I think that's a very less chance, because the user consent API is very easy to configure. The SMS retriever API is much difficult to configure because it requires some logic on the back end as well. That's why I've started with this one. Anyways, let's get started. Also, one more thing which I want to show you, if I just show you my message, how my message is received. So here you can see, okay, I have received 2 messages, but here typically a message would be like, your sample test verification code is, this particular part remains constant, only the OTP part changes. So once we start the user consent API, you get the entire message. You don't just get the OTP, right? This entire part, your sample test verification code is will be constant for every message which I send, right? Do keep this in mind, because we need to segregate the OTP from this particular constant text which we have, and then only we can use that OTP. You directly don't get the OTP, you get the entire message. That's what I'm trying to say. But for most of the OTP services, they have this constant text, only the OTP changes. Okay, anyways, let's get started. So first, again, like I told you, I'm using the Godot documentation, and using that I'm created one cheat sheet. Also, I'm using Godot 4.3.0 at the time of me recording this video, but if there is some higher version available, make sure you use that. So firstly, using Android Studio, I have created an Android project. Just create an Android project. It can be an empty views project, empty compose project, doesn't really matter. Once you create the project, the next thing, so you will see something like this. The Gradle syncing might take a little bit of time, so be patient. So you will see this app as well as this Gradle scripts. The next thing which you have to do is, you just have to make sure you are in the Android drop down over here. Just right click, new module, select Android library, and here you can give the name as my library or whatever name you prefer. I have already created this, that's why it is not allowing me to create again, but give the name whatever you feel like. Okay, and here you can select Kotlin, change the package name to whatever you feel like, and then just click on finish. Again, I have already created this, as you can see over here. Again, this will take little bit of time for the Gradle syncing to finish, so be patient. Okay, once that is done, the next thing which you have to do is go to build Gradle scripts. You will have to go to your Gradle script of your library or whatever name you have given. So as you can see, it is my library for me. Now the first thing which you have to do is, you have to update the min SDK to 26. I'll tell you why we have to update the min SDK to 26, because there is something called we have to register a broadcast receiver, and for that we require context compat. Unfortunately, the Godot Android plugin or library which we are using does not support context compat directly. That's why we can't use lower versions of Android, and that's the reason why I have to update the min SDK to 26. So make sure you update the min SDK to 26 over here. Then you just have to scroll down. Here we are adding our Godot library. Now this might look a little bit weird to you, because in newer versions of Android we have to use something called version catalog. That's why the actual library name as well as the version has been written inside the slips.versions.toml, which I will show you shortly. And for this SMS user consent API, we have to add two dependency. One is play services auth and second one is play services auth API phone. So make sure you just add this bit of code. Then you have to go to libs.versions.toml, and here you can see, like I told you, I am using Godot 4.3.0 at the time of recording. That's why I'm using 4.3.0 stable. but if you are using some higher version, make sure you change this version to whatever you are Godot engine version you are using. You can also find this version on Maven Central. And then these are the two dependency, play services auth as well as play services auth API phone. Again, I think by the time you watch it, there might be some higher version available. So Android Studio will automatically give you a warning that okay, there is a higher version available, so use whatever is the latest version available for these two libraries as well. Then scroll down. Here you can see I have added the dependency for Godot, so you will have to copy paste this bit of code. Then this is for the play services auth, so you will have to copy paste this as well. And this is for the play services auth API phone, so again just copy paste this bit of code as well. Once that is done, here at the top you will see a sync now button. Just click on it and it will download all the dependencies for you. Okay, once that is done, you will have to go to your project, go to your library, go to Kotlin plus Java, and here inside over here you will have to create a Kotlin file. So just right click, new Kotlin file, give name as Godot Android plugin. I have already created it, so won't create it again. So firstly I will show you guys the imports. So these are all the imports which I have. Okay, so just copy paste all these imports. This is the documentation if you, in case if you are interested. So here we create a Godot Android plugin which extends from Godot plugin. Now there is one problem with this Godot plugin is there is something called register for activity result, which is still not possible to use inside Godot Android plugin because it requires an activity or a fragment. That's why I'm using this on main activity result. So in case if you are wondering why I'm still using on main activity result, that's the reason. I couldn't really figure it out how to use register for activity result. If you're not able to understand all this, leave it. You don't have to worry too much about it. But my only worry is I hope this on main activity result does not get complete. It is deprecated, but I hope it doesn't get removed in future versions of Android. Because I don't know how to use register for activity result in a Godot Android plugin. If you check my native Android video for this particular tutorial, in that I am using register for activity result. Again, if you are confused, don't worry too much about it. That's why for using this on main activity result, I have taken this request code. I'll come back to this broadcast receiver in a bit. I'll just ignore that. Here we are overriding this method called get plugin name. So this is my plugin name. I have kept it simple. Do remember this plugin name because we will be using this in lot other places as well. Then here we are overriding this get plugin signal. So here I have added my own signal because once I receive the message, I want to send the OTP back to Godot side, and it will be in form of string. If you want to use integer, you can use that as well. But yeah, here is the signal name. Now here is this particular method which I am getting called on the click of the button. So firstly we are using this SMS retriever dot get client. Here we are passing our activity and starting the SMS user consent. Here we are passing null because typically this would be the mobile number from which you receive the SMS, but in my case I don't know the mobile number because I am sending it via Twilio. I don't know what mobile number Twilio it is internally using to send SMS. That's why we just pass null over here. Now here is the success listener and failure listener. Like I didn't find them at all useful, but if you want you can use them. Like I'm just displaying a toast message. I never encountered this failure listener error. I don't know, maybe in some Android devices it could be there, but yeah, like these are pretty much useless according to me. You just have to call this particular part and be done with. Okay, now comes the important part of registering our receiver. So here I will show you our receiver. This is the broadcast receiver. So once the user receives a message and we get the action for it, we get some extras. Now this is little bit of boilerplate code, so just bear with it. Once we get the extras, we get the SMS retriever status. So above Android T you use something like this, below Android T you use something like this. Okay, then once we have the status code, we get the consent intent. Again from above Android T you have to use something like this, and below Android T you will have to use something like this. So once we have the intent, if we were using register for activity result, we would have done something like this, but we don't have register for activity result. We have on main activity result. So we just start our activity for result, pass our intent, and here as you can see the result code which I had defined, I am passing it over here. In case of any exception, I am displaying a toast message. Also there could be a timeout error. So suppose if you have clicked on the button, you have started this particular user consent thing, it won't be listening for your message forever. There is a particular timeout. I think I'm not really sure, 10 minutes I guess, but you can check the documentation, don't quote me on that. But once you get the timeout, I'm again displaying a toast message. So if you want, you can again start the user consent back over here in case if you get a timeout, but I'm just displaying a toast message for now. Okay, so hopefully you got the point. So once we start activity for result, you will come over here on main activity result, and if the request code matches, we get the actual message. Now we get the entire message. Like I have already shown you, my message contains this particular string, so you will have to change this to whatever your message contains, like the hard coded string apart from the actual OTP. So here I am segregating this particular hard coded string which you saw in my message from the OTP. That's why I'm using substring. So here I will just get my verification code. Once I have that verification code, I am making use of emit signal to send back that to send it back to Godot side. Now you also need to register this on this broadcast receiver. So for that I'm using this on main resume. Like I told you, I can't use context compat because it immediately crashes my app. I think this I'm able to use context compat in native Android. This is something related to the Godot Android plugin. I couldn't really figure it out. That's why I had to update the build.gradle the minimum HDK version, not here, sorry, over here, min HDK version to 26. That's the reason why, and that's why we have to use something like this, directly use register receiver and pass our broadcast receiver, and here we just do SMS retrieved action, send permission. I don't know what this scheduler is. I have just copy pasted this code from documentation, and this is our receiver flag. So that's what I'm passing over here. Okay, and on pause we are unregistering our receiver. Now there is one more thing which I want to tell you. In my output which I have shown you, so I have just one button, and in this particular screen itself I am displaying this OTP code, right? But many of you would have a different flow. Like you will have a mobile number on one screen, on screen 1 you will have your mobile number, you will have a button to get the OTP. Once user click on get OTP, you will call your backend API which will send you the message, right? And then you would be redirected to some separate screen. It could very well be possible. So in that case, if you are calling this Godot Android plugin in screen 1, in this particular screen, like in screen 1 itself, and if you are moving to screen 2, this broadcast receiver will pause. So you will have to either create a separate plugin for this broadcast receiver, or you will have to call this plugin again inside your OTP code. So I'll leave it up to you. I don't want to cause too much confusion in this particular tutorial. That's why I have created only one screen. Okay, so typically what would I do is on click of the suppose I have screen 1, the user enters his mobile number, I have one get OTP button. As soon as the get OTP button is called, I will immediately start the context. Okay, so here, and I will call my backend API to send me the SMS. I will redirect to the next screen, and I will create this plugin as a singleton in Godot so that it can be used anywhere. And then inside your OTP screen also, if you want, you can initialize it, or maybe we don't need to initialize it because it is a singleton, but I'm not using singleton inside my Godot code. So yeah, just sorry about that, because I don't want to confuse you guys too much. Yeah, that's why I have created only one screen. All right, so hopefully you got my point. Hopefully you guys are not too confused. So that's it for the code wise. Next, what we'll have to do is we'll have to go to our project, go to manifest, android manifest.xml. Here again you will have to copy paste this code from the documentation. I have just done that. Now this should be your package name. In case if you forgot, you can go to Godot Android plugin. This is your package name. So just copy this package name, and this is our file name, and this is our plugin name. Again, in case if you forgot, this is our plugin name. So we have done that. Next, you will have to go to the project drop down, and here inside my library you will have to create a folder called export scripts template. So to create a folder, just right click, new directory, give name as export scripts template. I have already done that. Next, inside that we have to create a two files, export underscore plugin.gd and plugin.cfg. So to create a file, just right click, new file, and write the file name. So first, plugin.cfg, again I have copy pasted this from the Godot documentation. Only thing which you have to remember, this should be your plugin name. Change the description author to whatever you feel like. Then this is our export plugin.gd. Again I have copy pasted this from the documentation. So the important thing which you have to remember is this should be your plugin name, rest everything will remain the same. And we also have to override this get android dependency method, because we have added two more dependency apart from the Godot android plugin dependency. We don't have to include the Godot android plugin dependency over here, but if you are adding any extra dependency inside your build.gradle file, you have to add it over here as well. So that's what I have added it over here. So if you remember, inside libs.versions.toml we have added this. So I've just copy pasted this over here, okay, and this is the library version number. So in case if you forgot, here you can see. And similarly we have to do same thing for play services auth API version. So I have just copy paste this entire part as well, and I have pasted it over here. Here you can see, and again I have just copy pasted this version from over here. So whatever version you are using over here, make sure you use the same version inside export plugin.gd. Same thing I have done below over here as well. Okay, so this is done. Let me quickly check the documentation. So I have done this, I have done this. Okay, next what you will have to do is you will just have to open your terminal. So I have opened my terminal. Here you can see I will just go to my Android project, like cd to my Android project inside my terminal, and then we have to run this particular command .gradle w assemble. So I will just run this particular command. Now this again will take little bit of time for you guys, so be patient. So basically it will generate two AR file for us. In the meantime, okay, so I'll just show you where the AR files are generated. So this is my Android project. Go to your library, build, outputs, AR, and hopefully, so the command is still running. So okay, so here you can see two AR files been generated. Next we have to create our Godot project. So I have already created my Godot project. Firstly you will have to go to project, install Android build template. If you are doing this for the very first time, you will also have to download it. I have already installed it, that's why I'm getting something like this. Then you will have to go to project, export, click add, click Android. I have already added it. At the bottom you might see an error, and with a fix import button, just click on that fix import button, and here you will have to check this use Gradle build, and here you will have to check whatever architecture your Android app will run on. If you don't know what architecture your mobile device has, select all four of those. Then you will have to go to your Godot project. So I'll just go to my Godot project. Here is my Godot project. Inside that, create a folder called add-ons. I have already created it. Inside that, create a folder with your plugin name. So I have already created it. So inside plugin folder, you have to copy paste these two files, this export plugin.gd as well as plugin.cfg, which we created inside our Android library. I have already copied those. Then create a bin folder as well. Inside bin, you have to create two files, two folders, sorry, debug and release. Now if you remember, we had created this AR files inside our Android project, right? You will have to copy the debug AR file to the debug folder and the release AR file to the release AR folder, but you have to change the file name to whatever is your plugin name -release.ar for release folder, and for debug whatever is your plugin name -debug.ar. So hopefully you are so I have already copy pasted it. So yeah, next all right, let's see the docs. So I have done this. Then you will have to go to project settings, go to plugins, and make sure you check this particular checkbox as well. Also I am using orientation as portrait, so just search for window, and here you can see I have changed the width and height, and also the orientation is portrait for me. Use whatever you feel like. Then here I have created one scene which has a button as well as a label, and I have attached one script to it as well. And if you see the signal, I have added this press signal as well over here. Then if you see, I have just this is our plugin name. So just copy paste this code. Here we are referencing our label which I have created over here. Then inside on ready function, we are just initializing our plugin. Also this is our signal name, if you remember, which we have defined it on the Android side. So for this, once the signal is called, I have created a particular method called date, and it takes input as data. So I'm just this will be actually the OTP, so I'm just displaying the OTP on our label. And here on button press, we also call this AutoFill method, which we have defined it on the Android side. Also one more thing is, go to project settings, not project settings, sorry, project export Android, and here you will also have to change the min SDK version to 26, because if you remember, we have changed the min SDK version to 26 on the Android side. If you don't do that, you will get an error. Okay, so I think that should be it. I have already told you all this stuff. Now in previous version of Godot, there was something called editor settings as well. I think they have removed this in Godot 4.3.0 at least. Typically we had to configure this debug key path and Android SDK path. For Mac, if you're on Mac OS, the debug key path is something like this. Android SDK path, you can get it from Android Studio, but we don't have to configure that in 4.3.0. I'm not really sure. Maybe it is picking up directly from Android Studio's configuration. Again, I'm not really sure. Also, there was one more issue with Godot 4.2.0 related to Java SDK path not been found. So for that, you can refer to this particular documentation. Again, I didn't face this issue for Godot 4.3.0. So I think hopefully that should be it. You can run your application and it should work. Yeah, do let me know in the comments in case if you face any issues. Happy to help. Let me quickly check in case I haven't forgot anything. Yeah, this is not required. So yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching. Bye.